You're holding a phone that's 4 years old. The screen has a hairline scratch near the top corner. On the wall in front of you, a display glows. The newest model, lit from behind, arranged like it matters more than the room it's in. Everyone near the display is looking at it. You look at it too. And for a second, the old phone in your palm feels heavier than it did this morning. The same weight, somehow carrying more. Nobody is forcing your hand. There's no crisis here. The phone works. The camera still takes the photo. The messages still arrive on time. This is just the moment the industry spent years building, waiting for you to walk into it. You put the new one back on its little stand. You walk out with the old one still in your pocket. That's the whole decision. It takes about 4 seconds, and no one in the store notices you make it. A store employee drifts over, friendly, already reaching toward the newest model. Anything you're thinking about today? And you almost say yes, because yes is the easy sentence, the one the whole room was quietly shaped to hear you say. On the drive home, the new phone is already fading from your mind. That's the thing about wanting it. The wanting is loud inside the store and quiet everywhere else. By the time you're home, you've mostly forgotten the display existed at all. The next Monday, your coworker has it, the new one. They set it on the desk, face up, screened toward the ceiling. The specific way a person sets down something they'd like to be seen without having to mention it. They hand it to you. Look at the camera, they say. Night mode. Look at the shadows. And it's true, the photo is sharper than anything your phone makes now, cleaner in the dark. You nod, because it really is nicer. You feel it then, small and specific. The sensation of being slightly behind, not broke, not struggling. Just a half step back from the front of a line you didn't know you were standing in. What you don't feel is the other side of it. Because you didn't spend $1,100 this week, and your coworker did, and money that isn't spent doesn't disappear. It just sits there quietly, waiting to be pointed somewhere. So you point it. An index fund. The whole market flattened into one boring line on a screen. The gap between their upgrade and your patience comes out to about $45 a month. Not a fortune. Just a redirected want. $45. Less than a dinner out. Not enough to feel like a plan or a sacrifice or anything at all. Just the shape of a phone you chose not to buy. Turned sideways and set down somewhere it can grow. You could have skipped even that. Kept the 45, spent it on nothing in particular, the way most money quietly gets spent. Instead, you just moved it one drawer over into an account you'll rarely open, and then forgot which drawer. Nobody set this up as a system. There's no spreadsheet, no vow, no photo of a goal number taped to a wall. There's only a small automatic transfer scheduled once on a Tuesday and then left completely alone to do its slow, unwitnessed work. A year passes, then 18 months. Your coworker upgrades again. The cycle is short for them, a fresh phone roughly every year and a half, steady enough that you could almost set a calendar by the unboxing videos on their desk. Your phone is older now. It hesitates. Apps take a breath before they open. The battery gives out by evening. And one gray morning, it slips from your hand on the pavement, and the screen webs over with a long branching crack. Here is the second decision, quieter than the first one. The crack is a reason, a good one even. Nobody who saw it would question you for finally replacing the thing. You'd get a nod, not an argument. You get it repaired instead. $180 at a small shop that does it in under an hour. The glass comes off, new glass goes on, and the phone underneath is exactly the same phone it was before it fell. It isn't a satisfying choice. There's no box to open, no film to peel off the front. You walk out with something that looks faintly refurbished and works precisely like it did the day before you dropped it. Whole again, but not new. Someone notices the faint seam where the new glass meets the frame. You could just get the new one, they say, not unkindly. You smile and say, maybe. You don't get the new one. The seam stops bothering you inside of a week. But the $45 keeps moving, every month without ceremony, without a notification. You've stopped noticing it leave your account. The not noticing, is the part that matters most, though you have no way of knowing that yet. There's a version of you in some other life who replaced it that morning, who felt the new phone thrill for about a month. You don't envy him exactly. You just notice quietly that he exists, and then you let him go. Time does the thing that time does. 5 years fold quietly into the account. The phone in your pocket has been the same phone for most of them, and somewhere along the way, you simply stopped thinking of it as old. It's just yours. You barely remember choosing any of this. There was no dramatic morning, no decision framed in a mirror. Just a default you set once and never got around to changing, which is quietly how most of a life ends up getting built anyway. The number in the fund isn't dramatic. A few $1,000s. Enough to notice if you look, not enough to change a single thing about your day. You almost forget to check it. That's fine. It was never waiting on you to watch it. Your coworker across the same stretch has held maybe 6 phones, each one thrilling for about a month. Each one eventually settling back into being just a phone again, the shine worn smooth and unremarkable by the arrival of the next release. You run the math once, idly, on a slow afternoon that has nothing else in it. The phones they've bought add up to far more than you would have guessed out loud. The phones you've bought still fit on one hand. The strange part is how little you actually gave up to get here. You never went without a working phone. You never missed a call, a photo, a map, a message. The only thing you skipped was the newness of it, only the shine. You don't feel superior about any of it. You don't feel much at all. The old phone is just a fact of your life now, like a coat you never replaced because it still unfashionably keeps you warm. Life happens over the top of all of it. Jobs change. You move once, maybe twice. Birthdays stack up without asking. And underneath the ordinary noise of a whole decade, the transfer keeps its appointment every single month, asking nothing of you at all. Somewhere in there, you almost stopped it once. A tight month, an unexpected bill, the transfer suddenly looking optional. You thought about pausing it. You didn't. You covered the bill another way and let the 45 keep going out of something closer to inertia than discipline. Then the market drops, not a wobble, a real one. The boring flat line on your screen turns downward and keeps going, and the account you had barely been watching is suddenly worth less than the money you actually put into it. This is the third decision, and it's the hardest of the 3, because it doesn't look like phones at all. It looks like a red number and a very reasonable voice somewhere behind your ribs, suggesting that now might be the time to stop the bleeding. The voice makes a kind of sense. Pull it out. Wait for the calm. Get back in when things look better again. And everyone around you seems to be reaching for the same exit at the same moment for exactly the same reasons. You don't move. Not because you're brave, and not because you know something the crowd doesn't. You don't move because moving would mean paying attention. And the entire point, from the start, was to build a thing you never had to babysit. The $45 keeps arriving through the worst of it. Every month buying that same boring line while it happens to be cheap, though you'd never have described it that way. You didn't buy the dip on purpose. You just never reached over and turned it off. And the market does what it has so far, always eventually done. It comes back. Then it comes back further than before. The red number turns black again, and then it keeps climbing into a figure you genuinely did not expect to see. You notice something then, watching it climb. The people who ran for the exit locked in the loss on their way out and then missed the whole recovery on the way back up. Staying perfectly still had, quietly, been the entire strategy all along. Now the account begins doing the one thing the phone store never could. It grows on its own. The gains start making their own gains. Your $45 a month becomes the smallest, least interesting part of the total on the screen. This is the part that never fits on a store shelf because it isn't a product and it can't be bought. It's just time, applied patiently to a small and boring number, doing the one quiet trick that small and boring numbers can eventually do. You still upgrade sometimes. Every 5 years or so, when a phone finally gives out for real and repair stops making sense. A new one, paid for in full, no drama attached. 6 phones across 3 decades, give or take a cracked screen. Each time, you send the difference along, the same as always. The habit is older now than most of the furniture in your home. You don't feel it happen. It feels like nothing at all. Which is, it turns out, exactly what lets it keep working. The coworker, meanwhile, still upgrades, still enjoys it, still shows you the camera every 18 months, and every 18 months it really is a little better. You still nod. You've been nodding for 30 years now, and you've meant it every single time. 30 years out from the store, from that 4-second decision no one in the room noticed you make. You open the account on an ordinary morning that has nothing special about it whatsoever. The $45 a month, money that was only ever the shape of phones you chose not to buy, has quietly become something north of $50,000. From a redirected want, from a phone you didn't upgrade again and again. Around 54,000, give or take the assumptions underneath it. A modest average return, a market that fell and rose and fell and rose. And most of that number was never really your money. Most of it belonged to time. It's a hard number to feel the weight of because you never earned it in any dramatic way. Nobody handed it to you. You didn't work extra hours for it. It arrived in slivers so thin that not one of them on its own was ever worth noticing. Across the very same 30 years, you spent about $6,000 on phones. 6 of them spaced far apart, plus a single repair on one gray afternoon, a web screen quietly made whole again. Your coworker spent somewhere north of $20,000 on phones over the same stretch, 20, likely more. A long parade of bright rectangles, each one absolutely essential for about a month, and then simply the old one, waiting to be replaced. None of those phones were wasted exactly. Each one took real photos of real days, held real conversations, sat in a real pocket. They did their job, and then they were gone, the way almost everything bought quietly is. It was never that your coworker made a mistake. They bought exactly what they wanted, when they wanted it, and enjoyed every bright minute of it. The only difference between you was this: you happened to want the number more than the newest thing. But that's not the part the store ever puts up on the display wall. Not the 20,000 that was spent. The 50,000 that the 20,000 could have quietly become, and sold off in pieces every 18 months simply didn't. Both of you started with the same money in hand. One of you turned a recurring want into a recurring deposit. The other turned the very same want into a long, genuinely enjoyable series of very good cameras. That was the whole difference. And neither of you was exactly wrong. The photos were real. The nice phones were genuinely nice. Nothing visible was ever given up. Nothing you could point at and call a sacrifice. That's the strange, quiet nature of this particular kind of choice. You go looking once for the moment it all turned. The single choice that made the difference. And there isn't one. There's only the same small choice made again and again across 1,000 ordinary days you've long since forgotten. Because an old phone was never really the sacrifice. It only ever looked like one. It was a single decision you made once in 4 seconds and then kept on making by doing nothing at all, over and over, for 30 years. The compounding stayed invisible the entire time. It had to. If you had ever been able to feel it working, you'd have been tempted to reach in and touch it. And reaching in was the one and only way the whole thing could have broken. So it stayed quiet. A boring line, a scratched screen. $45 slipping out each month towards something you could barely be bothered to notice, right up until the morning, 30 years on, when it turned out to be the only thing worth noticing at all. The newest model is still on the wall somewhere, still glowing, still lit from behind like it matters more than the room it's in. You're still holding the old one. You always were. You're holding a phone that's 4 years old. The screen has a hairline scratch near the top corner. On the wall in front of you, a display glows. The newest model, lit from behind, arranged like it matters more than the room it's in.